So recently I posted a YouTube short, just one of my posters, and someone asked how I come up with ideas. And this is something I struggle with even now, is coming up with ideas and being creative. And so I thought I'd make a video about how I'm trying to be more creative and what strategies I use. And I got 5 today. And obviously I'm not a scientist. Some of this stuff is just what I think. I'm an 18-year-old kid. I don't really know what I'm talking about. Number 1 is take silent walks. It doesn't have to be walking. Anything that kind of puts you in that meditative flow state where your brain's kind of turned off. So like driving, walking, biking. I would say probably getting outside is pretty important, like to be creative, because seeing the scenery is really important. I do a lot of driving, and that's actually where a lot of the ideas of my posters come about. And even when I'm walking, I'll get a lot of good ideas. The reason it's so good is because as a designer, the outside world is all inspiration. You'll start to see fonts everywhere. You'll start to see posters put up on the street. And the coolest part is like you can get free textures. Like if you need textures for your posters, you can just take pictures with your phone. If you see a cool image that like gives you an idea, take a picture of that. And so that's why the walking is good. And that's why like driving, I have the scenery. I drive like 45 minutes at a time, like, and I drive past power lines. And I knew there was a reason I kept thinking about these power lines, and one day just clicked. I came up with the idea, and this poster was created. I'll show it on screen. It's kind of just like that, right? It's like seeing those things, seeing the scenery helps so much with being creative. And you can just take pictures of that stuff instead of like looking for stock images online. The reason I say silent is because when you're walking, if you're listening to music, can actually be really, in my opinion, distracting and make the walking and the action almost innate and like can make my brain turn off. I think it's important to have more silence in your life. And I think that music, YouTube videos, podcasts, all that stuff, listening can be very valuable to be creative. But of course, and everybody knows this at this point, is things in moderation is important. And if you're constantly filling your brain, I want you to think about this, right? Your brain is a muscle. And if you're listening to music when you wake up, if you're listening to music when you walk, when you're on the bus, when you're driving, and then you listen to it when you're in school, when you're in class, when you're working, and then you listen to it when you're in the gym afterwards, you listen to it when you're playing video games, and then you watch YouTube videos. You're constantly consuming and digesting information, and it makes your brain work. It's a muscle, right? And again, I'm not a scientist, but this is how I think about it, right? You're constantly using it, listening, digesting information, so your brain fills up, and it has no more room to be. Right? It has no more room to create its own ideas because it's constantly processing other information, which is why I think it's important to every once in a while just take a walk without music, leave the earbuds and just listen. It's like, it's boring, sure, but being bored I think is actually what makes us creative. And so maybe take that drive, that long ass drive, silently. There's been a couple of moments where just randomly I would decide to turn the music off when I'm driving, and an idea would hit me like a rock, and it wouldn't have been there unless I turned that music off. So basically, in summary, try to moderate your consumption of noise, allow yourself to be bored, allow your brain to create ideas from itself, and it'll create unique ideas. Along with that, you can pair it with having some sort of scenery. Next one. So this is kind of paired. I recommend adding walks to your daily routine. If you don't have time for that, or you have time for an extra thing, add in this. Meditate. So like I was saying in the last point, we're constantly digesting information. We're constantly have other people talking to us. We constantly have ideas and things running in our head. And meditating allows us to reflect on these ideas and kind of relax our brain and relax that muscle completely and utterly. We don't have to digest any visuals because you close your eyes and you just focus on your bodily functions, which is actually something that we never do. We're constantly digesting, doing things, working, anything, right? We're constantly doing all these things. And so we never actually even feel us. We forget and disconnect from ourselves. And when you do that, how do you expect your brain to come up with ideas? How do you expect yourself to be creative when you aren't even in yourself, when you don't even feel real, right? So meditating allows you to ground yourself and kind of become human again and feel real and let your brain relax. So I recommend you meditate and then go for that walk, or vice versa. Because if you meditate and you're in that meditative state and then you go for a walk with the scenery, the idea is like you just primed your mind because it's relaxed, it's ready to go, it's focused, and then you go for that walk. Now you set yourself up for a recipe to be creative and see ideas and see things in a bit of a different way than you normally do. The next one is stop working. So this is if you're halfway through a project, most likely, or you kind of have an idea, but it's not complete yet, and you're so fixated on trying to finish this project or complete this idea, and you're trying to force it and make it happen physically and change it and mold it, you're stuck, and you just can't push through that barrier, that block, that creative block, right? That's what we call it when we've created this such cool idea and it's almost done, but something is missing. When you've hit that burnout point, oftentimes it's better to just take a break and come back to it tomorrow or the next day. So I'm a parkour athlete. As a parkour athlete, we practice skills and flips, or you're trying to learn the side flip. And so you're trying to continuously learn the side flip over and over and over and over again. You eventually get burned out and you hit the point. It seems like there's no progress. And something that can be really valuable is take that side flip, try doing it off a box, try doing it off a ramp, try doing it off a pole. Try doing a different variation, try a different flip, try a different skill entirely, maybe not a flip at all, and then come back to it. And something that you'll realize is that there's elements in the other project that you've started that you will learn, and you will, so maybe your hip placement in the front flip, or your hip placement in a Kong. For any parkour athletes, they'll know what I'm talking about. And then you come back to your side flip, and then you realize, okay, my hips need to be there. It's the same as my Kong. It's the same as my front flip. It's the same as my Buddha drop. That's where it needs to be. And you get this, you unlock this level of understanding. If you take that and replace it with a poster or a project, you take a break from the current one that you're working on, you go work on something else, and then you realize that there's an effect or something that you did with this other poster on accident or maybe intentionally that it was missing, and you want to add it to the other one. And that was the final thing that other poster or other project was missing. That's what I mean by stop working. It doesn't necessarily mean stop working entirely. It means stop working on that project specifically because you've focused so much on it and expended so much energy into it that you've just hit that creative block. And if you just take a break or you try working on something else and then come back to it, usually it'll flow way better and you can create again and not feel blocked and not feel like lost. The next one, this goes along with everything else that I was talking about. Consume intentionally. I feel like this is such a big trend, and I'm kind of just repeating what I've heard on the internet. If you're continuously listening to music that doesn't benefit you, or watching movies or scrolling on TikTok, on Instagram, you're constantly filling your mind and brain and not with things that you can be creative about. So something that I recommend that you guys do consume is maybe some better feel-good music. Some music that actually makes you feel good and maybe doesn't have so much swearing in it. Something that I've started to do, and it allows me to have a clearer mind and a happier mind because it really doesn't feel like it. I've only recently started doing this, but I've actually noticed I'm more happy that I listen to less music, especially music that has swears or is very graphic. We almost become, we forget that it's even there, and we forget that, like, because when I listen to music, I don't always listen to the lyrics. Sometimes I then start to listen to the lyrics, and then I'm like, I don't want this in my mind. I don't want this in the back of my head. And it almost goes into your head with the beat, but you aren't thinking about what they're saying and not thinking about the lyrics. Some people think it's cringe to listen to music without swears, and I agree in some contexts. Some music just does not fit that type of thing. But all I'm trying to say, especially with music, is just be more intentional and realize what you're listening to, because it can definitely free up some mind space when you're happier and when it's less graphic content in your head. And podcasts can be also really good just because it's talking about deeper topics and subjects. which can create interesting ideas in your head. Same thing with YouTube videos. Maybe try to consume longer form videos that have more context and more content behind it that will maybe spike ideas and create ideas. So consuming isn't all bad, right? I think you can do it in a very intentional way. You could, instead of scrolling, maybe scroll on Pinterest or scroll on somewhere that will like other people's work, right? Behance, somewhere that like just search posters or anything on Google and just scroll through that, and instead of mindlessly consuming information that doesn't benefit you. Of course, overdoing that can eventually not be very beneficial to you, because then you could just end up replicating other people's work. So I think to an extent it can be really good to get inspiration and learn new effects and ideas and composition, but overdoing that kind of makes it so that you aren't really creating your own original ideas, which I think is the point of this stuff, right? Where we create art. Even when it's more corporate styled things, this is art. So the next point kind of goes along with the other thing that I was talking about, copy. So the way that I come up with a lot of my ideas is I actually follow a lot of graphic design people on Instagram. I look at Pinterest and I just like and follow and make sure to save concepts and ideas and compositions and effects that I like in other people's work, and I try it in my own. Now again, you don't want to take this too far, because then you just end up copying, which I've done before. And I like being original, even though that it's really hard to be original, especially in a world where there isn't a lot of originality anymore. A lot of things have been said multiple times in a row, just in different ways and in different formats. So that's why I think combining kind of the time to let your brain be bored allows you to create your own ideas, and then you can go through other people's work, see something that you really like, and combine those two things together, right? So maybe find an effect, and then maybe you come up with a quote, or you come up with a cool picture, or you found a cool picture, or you found something interesting outside that spikes some idea in your head, and then you combine it with some other composition that you saw in someone else's work, and you put it together and you create your own thing out of it. Yeah, like a lot of my projects are actually like, there was a portion of it that was taken from someone else's, and that sounds bad, but everybody does it. The copiers copy the copiers, and the copiers are copying other copiers. No idea is original. It's all just iterations of other people's ideas. Don't feel bad about it, but also try to be original, at least to some extent. It's a hard, there's a trap. It's a trap to fall down into, that you start to copy and kind of like replicate other people's stuff just with other images, but you say the exact same thing, or you say the exact same thing, but it's the same images, right? So that's 5, right? Silent walks, copy, meditate, stop working on it, and consume intentionally. Those are the 5 ways that I am trying to become more creative and come up with ideas more often, because that's a struggle that I go through. Bonus tip: carry a pocket notebook. You can just use your phone if you want to. That's fine. But when you're on those walks, your phone is really attractive. When you're on those drives, when you're on those bikes, when you're on those runs, your phone is really, really attractive to get distracted on. So if you leave your phone at home, you leave the music at home, and you go do that thing, and then you come up with an idea, this is where I put my ideas. You can draw it, which I love about paper. You can draw on your phone, sure. Some people prefer that. I don't care. Do that if you want to. Bring your phone. Personally, I would get sucked into Instagram and maybe forget the idea. I want to intentionally track and write down my ideas as quickly as I can. Personally, doing that, I want to get my ideas on paper. I want to write it down or draw it or whatever it is. And paper is just an easier way for me to do it, because on my phone, sure, it's just as easy to go to the notes app, but there's so many other things that I can do on my phone. Maybe start carrying a pocket notebook. I have tape on here that carries my pen around, and I bring this on my walks usually, or I try to. I try to bring it in my backpack where I go. Just when I come up with ideas, I draw it out. Yeah, well, I hope that helped. This is kind of a different video. I want to make more videos like this, kind of in between when I don't have poster ideas. so that I can help benefit you guys too, and not just make stuff. Because I want to help you guys create what I create, but he has a unique way of expressing things through themselves, but they just haven't found it yet. And yeah, so I hope this helps. And yeah, if you enjoy design content and you want to support me, please subscribe. See you later.